Thank you for taking the time to attend the session. Before we get to the demo, I have a few slides. We'll look at CC1 at a glance. We'll look at the architecture. We'll look at how CC1 fits in the Cisco portfolio, and then we'll talk about some of the features and functionality that's available, including the Salesforce edition, the analytics. And then before we jump into the demo, we'll just talk about the new features that we've added in the release 10 that has just been rolled out. So CC1, in terms of background, it was part of a company called Transera that was formed in 2004. And Transera thought of the solution as, from the ground up, it was envisioned to be a cloud-only solution. So that means it was envisioned to be delivered by the Transera service management group, and that essentially meant that all the, basically the architecture thought was put into so that resiliency and service delivery was kept in mind, and also from the ground up, the platform was built for it to be multi-tenant. So what we noticed among the competitors was that some of the other companies, when they saw the cloud, essentially take off, they took their on-premise solution and they put it in the cloud. And as a result, they started running into challenges where the solution was not multi-tenant, the solution was not resilient from a service delivery standpoint, and that is essentially what we don't have as a problem within our solution, because our DNA was from the ground up being a cloud-only solution. So when we started early on, we essentially we had our own data centers. We had one in New York, the other one in LA. Two different. So
just carry on, Anil. Sorry about that.
So over the years, now there are different tools and mechanisms available to us, so that we don't want to be in the managing of the cloud thing. There are other vendors who do that for a living, essentially Amazon, Google. They all have platforms that we can now leverage. So going forward, the 10.0 release is actually going to be available through AWS. Now, from the customer standpoint, it does not matter to them. They don't need to know where is this service hosted at. We promise them not 3 nines or 4 nines or 5 nines service delivery, and that's the uptime. They just use a web browser and access the solution. Strengths of the application includes full omnichannel interaction center. We have very powerful analytics, and we'll talk about that in the future slides. We also have a very deep integration into Salesforce, and that integration is not only at the agent level, but also for the supervisor as well. And then, like I mentioned, 2 years ago, we got acquired by Broadsoft, and Broadsoft had a unified communications platform, LexSpark, that we have integrated into, and I'll show this integration as part of the demo. So it's a mature product. We have customers with different agent counts, all the way from 5 agents to 6,000 agents that are using the application. They are very happy with the solution. And but what we see, given everything that is available in the Cisco portfolio, we feel that the CC1 solution is going to fit that gap in the mid-market for the cloud space, essentially targeting the 21 to 300 agent count market. It's built on the modern cloud architecture. We have essentially using on our analytics solution. We have leveraged the big data technologies that essentially the Googles and Facebooks have come up with over the years, and we are taking advantage of all of that progression that's been done in that space, and are providing a very modern and powerful solution on the analytics front. We also have RESTful APIs for all of our provisioning objects and to get all the information from the application. And then, as you'll see, our UIs are modern and they've been built on the React and Angular framework. The last thing on this front is CC1 for the last 3 years, has been recognized as a visionary has been recognized as a visionary in the Magic Quadrant. So essentially, if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, CC1 has been on the far right. Essentially, that's recognition that the solution contains all the bells and whistles expected out of a contact center solution. Where we have been lacking is the ability to execute, and I think that's what Zach, when early on he was mentioning about, the channel, the Cisco channel, or the Cisco brand name is what is going to complete the solution and essentially give us an advantage and edge. So let's talk quickly about the architecture. So what we have done in CC1 is we have separated the application from the media, and that is one of our architectural strengths. So for example, I was in Melbourne last month, and I was talking to one of the service providers, and he was essentially explaining how new voice media has gone to market in Australia. So in their case, when a call comes into Australia and needs to be connected to an agent in Australia, they backhaul the call all the way to UK, where the data centers reside, and they're backhauling the call back to the agent in Australia. So that has its challenges, not a straightforward solution. But what we have done is, when the callers call in, the callers land into the voice pop, and the voice pop essentially extends another leg to the agent, and the application center is essentially responsible for defining which agent should be assigned to that particular call. So that signaling happens through SIP between the voice pop and the data center, but essentially the voice pop is where all the media resides. So the callers connect to the voice pop, the agent connect to the voice pop, and as long as the voice pop is kept in the region, the media remains in that region. So that has its advantages, and then the application center can reside anywhere, but it doesn't have to be in region. It can be a centralized location, or it can be within that region itself. So that's essentially our strength in terms of the simplicity of the architecture. And if you want to go to a new geography, all we need to do is add a new voice pop in the geography, and our solution should work. So let's look at what's in a voice pop. So voice pops are nothing but SBCs, which are session border controllers, which are off-the-shelf products, and media servers. So media servers, they can run on virtual machines or Intel hardware, and essentially if you want to deploy a voice pop, you just set this up, and your voice pop is complete. And then the application center. So application center consists of 3 components. So there's the call component, and then the agent component, so demand and supply. So your calls are coming in, and they register with the call control gateway. And then when the agents log in, the agents are, there's a signal sent to the ACG, which is the agent control gateway, which keeps tracks of all the agents that are available, including their status. So the CCG, when a call comes in, needs to know which agent needs to be assigned to that call. And to get that information, we have an engine called the Transera Application Manager that does this matching of which agent should be assigned to that particular call. And essentially, the CCG is then made aware through the TAM in terms of which agent should be connected to that particular call. So let's see how the voice pop and the application work together for an inbound call. So when the call comes in, it comes into the SPC. The SPC sends a signal to the CCG about the incoming call, and the call is then sent to the media server. On the media server, then the CCG can essentially signal and essentially define what the wait treatment and the IVR music on hold information is, and the call essentially is parked on the media server. The CCG then sends a request to the TAM, figures out who is the right agent to be assigned to that call. Once it knows which is the right agent that should be assigned to that call, it then signals, makes a signal to the SPC, and the SPC then initiates a call to the other agent. And so once that call is made to the agent, that leg is then conferenced with the caller leg at the media server level, and there's a conference object created. Right, so this conference object is essentially the caller leg conference with the agent leg, and that's how the customer is connected to the agent. So now, at the media server level, the recording also takes place. So the media server does the recording, and then we just harvest the recordings off of the media server and connect it to the CTR. So because we have this simplified conference object between the customer and the agent leg, say a supervisor wants to monitor the call. So in that case, what we do is we just create another leg to the supervisor, add it to the conference object, and we are essentially now allowing the supervisor to do silent monitor, barge in, whisper coaching. And similarly, if the agent wants to, say, consult to another agent, then we just add that other agent into the conference object and just connect the two agents together. And we also can do the agent to agent and caller conference as well, three-way conference too. So the data center and the voice pops are not exclusive. So the same set of data centers can handle multiple voice pops. So initially we started off with the voice pops with the data center in LA and New York, and then at those locations we added the voice pops. So those small orange circles are the voice pops at those locations. And that's how we started initially. But then over the years, we had additional requirements. We had a partner, Excel, that wanted to essentially have its own voice pop dedicated to itself. So we just added another voice pop, and the same data center was able to route the calls through that voice pop. We also added another voice pop for SunCard. We went to Europe, and we added two voice pops, one in London, the other one in Amsterdam. And essentially, the LA and JFK data centers were able to control the European traffic as well. And similarly, when we went to Japan, all we did was we just needed the Japanese voice pops in place, and we were able to essentially go to market in Japan and have a solution available with the data centers residing in the US. So from an architecture standpoint, the solution does not require the application to reside along with the voice pops or be exclusive to the voice pops. Any questions so far?
We did go through most of this yesterday, and a lot of questions were asked, so this is an area we can probably jump through fairly quickly.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so where does CC1 sit in the portfolio? It's basically the mid-market. We have 3 SKUs. There is the Business Edition Standard, which is a voice-only offering, and then you can do the add-ons with the voice-only offering of WFO, which is through Calabrio, and then the self-service IVR, which is through Inference. If you want multimedia in addition to a voice, then there is the CC1 Business Edition Premium, and that includes multimedia and the analyzer with third-party data included. And lastly, we have the Salesforce Edition, which is the supervisor level integration. So those are the 3 portfolio SKUs that are available for CC1. And then for large customers over 300 agents, we are still positioning as HCS as being the right solution. So let's go into the features that are available as part of the application. So CC1 is a full omni-channel contact center. We have the voice, email, and chat channel that's available right now, but down the line, we'll be able to add social, SMS, and web interactions as well. And these interactions are routed to the right agent, and the agent on the same agent desktop is able to handle these interactions. So the other advantage of the solution is that when the agent is handling those interactions, they're able to see full omni-channel interaction history across the channels as well. And the last advantage of CC1 is you can use the past interactions for routing in real time. So if you know that this particular customer has had 3 emails and 2 chat interactions and now is calling in, you can use those past interactions and maybe qualify that agent to be sent to a different queue or to a product specialist. With Salesforce, we have an integration at the agent level, and the agent level integration essentially means that we do a screen pop for the agent for the incoming call. We do interaction logging so that there's an activity record created in Salesforce when the call ends, and then we also enable click to call. But we've also done a deeper integration into Salesforce for the supervisor. And what that means is without this deep integration, and if we just had the agent level integration, the supervisor had to go to Salesforce to manage all of their users, and then they had to go into the CC1 portal to do essentially their voice configuration in terms of how calls should be handled and what the routing strategies should be. So again, at the supervisor level, there was no integration, but the integration was only at the agent level. So what we did was we have embedded all of the supervisory capability within Salesforce, and I'll show you that in the demo, where the supervisor just remains in Salesforce and doesn't have to leave Salesforce, and it just looks like Salesforce has added voice as natively to its solution, and the voice channel is then available. So let me quickly talk about our analytics solution. So our analytics solution essentially was built when we were brainstorming the solution with, and we were looking on essentially a typical call center environment. And let me just use an example of a call that you might make to an airline, say United, and I'll just show you the problem as we saw it a couple of years ago. So when you call, say United, your call will be front-ended by an IVR. The IVR will collect some information from you. The call will be sent to the ACD, such as CC1, and then the ACD solution will try and find the right agent, and the call will be sent to the agent. The agent will then might use a CRM system such as Salesforce or an ERP system to track and resolve your issue. And then there might be a workforce application in place, quality management application in place, and a survey application in place. And so as you can see, a simple phone call was touched by about a handful of systems, and each of these systems, they just capture a small snippet of the customer interaction. So what we saw as a challenge is the call center operations has no visibility from an end-to-end view of the interactions, and that was something that was a gap in terms of what's available in the market for a business to understand what is happening in their environment. So as part of our solution, our analytics solution, what we do is we pull all of the customer interaction data from all the different systems that touch the customer interaction. We stitch it together so that we have an end-to-end view of the interaction. And then we also pull the information from on the agent front as well. So all the events that happen when the agent logs in to logs out are captured as part of the agent session records. So this information is stored in our big data repository. And on top of this, we have an application called the Analyzer, and I'll show this in the demo, where the user can go in and slice and dice the data to whatever, to gain basic insights about what's happening in their contact center. And then beyond that, we have 2 other steps. These are PS-heavy engagements, where we go into a customer and we ask them what KPI is important to you, and we then look at their underlying data for the last few months and figure out what attributes have led to increase or decrease of that KPI that was important to them. And then we can create models in terms of how calls should be handled in real time, so that we are able to essentially improve that KPI dynamically for the customer. So that's our analytics solution, and I'll show you the Analyzer as part of the demo today. Before we jump into the demo, the last thing I want to talk about is our 10 release. So as part of release 10, we have improved the entire agent experience, and you'll see this in the demo in terms of the UIs and the modern look and feel of the application. We've also added outbound campaign management functionality. So we have OEM'd Acquion, and we have that deployed in our data center using this particular solution. Right from the customer dashboard, the user can click on Campaign Manager. We launch the campaign management page where the user can create campaigns, they can upload lists, and those are essentially, that's functionality that's available along with the inbound solution.
Hey, Amit. Just one comment. It's very important when we sell this that we sell this as a solution and we don't expose the underlying technologies as third-party technologies. This is a packaged, integrated solution. Although we might have partners like Acquion that provide capabilities, we have all learned the lesson of exposing partnerships in contact center opportunities and how our competitors take advantage of it. This is a much more integrated, customized, and well thought out solution with the pieces that are provided, and it's cloud, so it's much different model than when we come up premise and we have a meeting with 3 or 4 partners and 5 people in the room. So we should never talk about anything else but this at the solution level, not the underlying capability. You can talk about the capability, but not who delivers it. It is a Cisco solution.
Exactly. Thank you for reminding me about that fact. So yeah, the campaign manager functionality is available. Similarly, on the WFO side, we have workforce optimization functionality from the customer dashboard. The user just clicks on the WFO link, a new window opens, and we are essentially we have that functionality available so that the user has workforce management, quality management, and analytics, voice analytics or speech analytics available at this point. We also have added UC1 integration on the agent desktop, and I'll show this in the demo. And this is where the user contact center agent has visibility on the presence of these users, and while working on an interaction, they have the ability to chat with those users as well. We have PCI Level 1 certified in this release, not in the previous release, but this release. And we've also added agent-level integrations to Zendesk and Microsoft Dynamics as well as part of this release. And what we also have added in R10 is a net new component called the Service Provider Provisioning Portal. And in this particular portal, the service provider can go in, they can add resellers, and they can also add tenants within their essentially umbrella, and they can essentially get full visibility and maintain that relationship within the CC1 application. For the tenant, the user can go in, they can create the tenant, they can put in the information. At this point, there is some manual backend work that has to be done before the tenant can be used, but there is work being thought about for automating that step as well. And then lastly, for speech-enabled IVR, so as part of CC1, we always had the DTMF IVR available. So what that meant was you could collect numbers that were punched in by the customer. And for example, you could play a message, press 1 for sales, 2 for service, and depending on if the customer pressed 1 or 2, you could send the call to the sales queue or the service queue. What we did not have was speech-enabled IVR, where we were able to recognize and understand what the customer is saying and route the call based on that information. So that is the functionality that we have enabled and released and using the entrance application. So with that said, let me jump into the demo. Any questions?
One of the questions that came up yesterday is there any chatbot vision yet as to what we're going to do in that space with this portfolio?
Yeah, so chatbot is being thought about. There is some work that has been done by the SmartCare team, and as such, we can integrate with a chatbot. We don't need to have a chatbot, but the chatbot could front end our chat solution, and we have kind of worked with customers where they wanted a chatbot solution and and in this case it was media, And our response to them was, yeah, front end all the interactions with Amelia. When Amelia says it can't help the customer anymore, you make a request to us using our APIs and you'll be connected to an agent, and that's how our solution works, where chatbots can be made available through third-party solutions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in release 10, we just have a single URL, depending on what your permissions are, whether you're an agent, a supervisor, a search writer portal user. Depending on your credentials, you'll be taken to the right place. So in this case, I'm logging in, and I'm logging in as a supervisor, who also is an agent. So in this case, because I'm an agent as well, I have access to this link called the Agent Desktop. So when I click on it, I'm taken to the Agent Desktop page. But as an agent, if I only had access at the agent level, I'll essentially be taken to this page where I can enter the DM at which I'm reachable for this session. So we support the true work from anywhere model. We don't have the agent sit on a specific location using a specific device. We have the work from anywhere model. The agent could be working from home. They can put in their home number to that session. And this is the number to which we'll send the calls for this session. And then the agent can also select the team that they want to log in into for this session. So the agent can belong to multiple teams, but at the time of login, they need to select which team they want to log in into for this session. So once the agent logs in, on the left side, we show all the past interactions. And then on the main pane, we show the agent their capacity of handling interactions across the different channels. So this agent can handle one voice call, one email from these queues, and one chat from these queues. So this is based on the multimedia profile and what has been configured and set up. You can, as a supervisor, go in and change these capacities, and you can say, well, as part of this multimedia profile, an agent should be able to handle 3 simultaneous emails and 3 simultaneous chats, and the system would essentially assign those many simultaneous interactions to the agent until the capacity is exhausted. The agent also has the ability to make outbound calls. So there's a number pad that's available, and once the call is made, the agent can also choose the ANI that should appear when that outbound call is made. We have our integration to the campaign manager right here. So this is preview dialing, and when the agent presses this button, a request is made to the campaign manager. The campaign manager finds the right record that can be called and sends it to the agent for him or her to preview. And if the agent accepts it, the call is made to the customer and then connected to the agent. We have resources. These are essentially templates that the agent can essentially create in advance. And templates are essentially canned responses that can be inserted into interactions. The agent can compose emails, or they can even save existing customer emails to work on at a later point. We have the agent personal statistics window. This provides visibility to the agent in terms of all the interactions that they've handled for the day, from both an inbound perspective and an outbound perspective. We also show the team statistics in terms of all the different team members that are available and logged in to the teams that this agent has been granted access to. We also show queue statistics in terms of the interactions that are in the queue that this agent is receiving calls from. And then we have a functionality in our system called threshold rules, where the supervisors can go in and create rules to be notified based on exceptions. So for example, they can set up a condition saying, if the number of, say, calls in the IVR exceed a certain number, I would like to be notified because that's a call storm happening. So those are the threshold rules that can be set up. So similar to that, the supervisor can set up rules at the agent level too, indicating, say, if the agent idle time has been greater than a certain number, I would like to be notified. So what we do is we notify the supervisor, but we also notify the agent too, saying, you were idle for too long, and an alert has been sent out to the supervisor. We also have the call recordings available to the agent for the calls that they've handled for that day. So only the agent's calls are visible to that agent. And then we have the online help that's available. And then lastly, there is our integration into UC. So the agent can essentially click on this UC link, and we support Broadworks platform that can be entered as the URL. The agent puts in their username and password and clicks sign on. So this is a pure server-side integration. The agent does not require any download of any software on their specific machine. Everything is done through the web browser itself. So here I'm logged in. I can see all the users who I've been granted access to, including their presence. But at this point, because I'm not working on an interaction as an agent, I cannot start chatting with these users because my main focus is to handle inbound calls. So what I'm going to do next is put myself into available status. So in this case, I'm logged in idle, and that's the reason I was not being assigned any calls. So as soon as I go into available status, I've been assigned an email. So I can accept it. And now I can then essentially reply to that email. I can look at the content, but we also provide information to the agent in terms of more detail and information about their interaction that they're handling. So we show them who the particular customer is, what is their email address, what was the subject, and then we show the past interactions as well from this particular customer in the past. So all the interactions across the different channels are displayed to that agent, and the agent can even look at the details, in this case, of the past chat interaction while they are working on this particular interaction. We also have the concept of process guides. So process guides are step-by-step instructions that the supervisor can create in advance for that agent to follow while they are working on this interaction. So these are process guides are context sensitive and basically can be dynamic. So as part of the multimedia rules, you can go in and define which process guides are applicable to which type of interactions, and those will appear on the top. Similarly, we have the resources, which are canned responses or templates. And in this case, the agent has created their resources, which are appearing on the top. But below that, you're seeing the resources which have been created by the supervisor. So the agent can quickly insert these templates or FAQs into their responses so that they're not typing the same thing over and over again. And the templates actually support personalization as well. So at runtime, the system figures out what the particular token value is and inserts that, making it personalized for that particular interaction. And the last thing is threading. So in our system, we support threading information so that if the customer is having two types of conversations or email exchanges with the call center, we segregate that based on the conversation. What I'm going to show you next is our chat interaction. So for initiating chat, we have a couple of options. So the first option is where the user goes to a web page and they put in their information and initiate the chat. We also have two other mechanisms for initiating a chat. One is through APIs, where a chat HTTP post request is made, and we can initiate the chat that way. Or the last way is through proactive chat, where based on certain conditions being true on the customer website, if those conditions become true, the customer is prompted with the option to chat with an agent. So in this case, we are using proactive chat, and we are essentially prompting the customer to chat with an agent. If the second time they try and place an order, they are unable to do that, that's the condition, and that's when the customer is prompted for initiating a chat. So in this case, I like this jacket. I'm going to add it to my cart. and I'm going to place an order. So here I'm going in as an end customer, and I'm trying to initiate the chat. So first time I don't get that request, but the second time I get this option to chat with an agent. So now when I'm initiating this chat request, two windows will launch to me. One is the chat window, and then there'll be a push URL window as well, which is the content window where all the content will get loaded in. So as part of the wait treatment, as we are trying to find an available agent, you can define messages to be pushed out in the chat window and content to be pushed out in the content window after a certain period of time. So this is, again, useful information. And then on the agent front, this chat has been assigned to me, and now I know everything about this particular customer. I can go into my templates. I can respond to this customer, and now without typing, I know everything about the person. I know all the past interactions, and I just inserted a template, and there was very minimal effort required from me as an agent. So on the chat application, we also support real-time sentiment analysis, and we show that information to that agent, which is our integration into IBM Watson. So in this case, I'm going to click on the analytics, the real-time sentiment analytics information window. And here I can essentially see as an agent how the customer is perceiving the interaction and what is the customer really saying. So in this case, as a customer, I'm going to go in and say, well, I'm not really happy because I can't place my order, so I'm going to send this message to the agent. And what we do is, in the background, we are making a real-time call to IBM Watson with the information, the entire chat transcript, and getting the information back from IBM Watson and displaying that to the agent. So here the agent knows the customer is really angry and pretty disgusted too. So this information is essentially available in real time to the agent. This is different from the text analytics that's available through our WFO platform. And down the line, we plan to add, enhancements to this where if, say, the anger level or emotion level exceeds a certain number, then we send a notification to the supervisor for them to monitor the calls. So the last thing I want to show on the chat channel is our integration into UC. So because I'd logged into UC when I initiated and logged into the application, while working on this interaction, I have this UC console button. So this is not to be confused with the conference button that's available. So using the conference button, I'm able to go in and send this chat to other CC1 users who are logged in, and I can send the chat to them. I can conference them in. But there might be cases where I am working on an interaction, and that requires information from somebody outside of the contact center space, another employee, who may not be on the contact center platform, but might be logged into UC. So using our UC integration from the agent desktop, the agent can click on this button. They can see the presence information for all these users, and in this case, it seems like Rafal is logged in because he's appearing in green, and I can start a UC consult with this particular user. So in this case, two chat windows appear. One is the regular chat window with the customer, and then here is the other chat window with the UC user, and I can basically ask the information, any issues, known issues with the website. So right from the agent desktop, I'm able to communicate with the UC users, get the information from the UC user, and we can we are helping the agent resolve the customer issue. So
Amit, one question I think is important, I think it was a good question asked by Giant, is when we make the agent available, does that make them ready for voice and non-voice channels at the same time, and could you manage them together or separately? Meaning, can you blend them, and can you manage the voice channels, like make them available for chat and not available for voice? Is there a way to partition, so to speak, the way that they're utilized?
Right. Good question. So at this point, it's all or nothing. So basically, when the agent goes available, we send interactions to the agent up to the capacity on the different channels. Now, there's an enhancement that we are planning on, which essentially makes the agent busy on real-time channels versus non-real-time channels. So, for example, when real-time blending, we are adding a flag called real-time blending. When that flag is checked, then the agent would be marked busy on the real-time channel, say if a chat comes in. So when the chat comes in, they will not get any phone calls, or when a phone call comes in, they'll not receive any chat. And then email and SMS are non-real-time channels, and the agents would essentially be sent interactions on that front up to their capacity. So that's an enhancement we are planning on, but at this point, it's an all or nothing with the agent state being applicable across channels.
Okay, then one other quick question. It's relevant to the agent desktop. Any SDKs or APIs to interface with the desktop for developers?
So we have APIs available, and I'd be happy to share them with you. Those are essentially for integrating to third-party applications, and those are what we have had available from a legacy standpoint. They were available in the 9.9 release and are also available in the 10.0 release. The main enhancements to APIs that we have made in this release is making sure that all of our provisioning information is available, and we have APIs on that front. So enhancing the APIs on the agent desktop is one of the projects that we need to focus on. But I mean, with that said, we do have APIs available for the agent desktop. Okay. So in this case, we on the UC integration, we do have notification functionality available. So suppose we receive a notification or a message from the customer, we actually show that notification to the agent on the chat window itself. So I'm going to say any updates from the customer, and as you can see, now we are going in and showing this notification to the agent, so the agent is not blindly going in and get notified when they're notified when a response has been received. Just to close out the agent interaction, let me show you a phone call and a phone interaction and that experience for that agent. So let me make a phone call. So in this case, I've entered this phone number, which is the agent leg, and when a call is assigned to this agent, this phone will ring. So I'm going to make the phone call, 1-833-747-1623. So when the call comes in, it'll be front-ended by an IVR.
Press 1 for sales, or press 2 for service.
So I'm going to press 1 for sales. This call is assigned to this agent. The agent is in ringing status. The phone is ringing. As soon as the agent answers, the agent is taken into connected status, and the agent sees all the parameters associated with the call, what was entered in the IVR. And now the agent can transfer the call to other agents. They can consult with other users. They can pause the recording. So if they're collecting sensitive information, they can pause the recording and then resume the recording after that sensitive information has been collected. They also have the UC consult functionality, and they have the full omnichannel interaction history for that customer available as well. So that's the agent experience. Let me end the call, and then once the call ends, we enter the wrap-up the disposition for that particular call, and then the agent is taken back into available status. So let me then move into the supervisor or the administrative piece of the solution. And here I'm logged in onto the supervisor portal. I can essentially define 4 different real-time or historical reports to appear on the landing page, and this is specific for each supervisor. So each supervisor can go in and configure the landing page to whatever is important to them. We show high-level stats to the user in terms of number of calls and number of agents that are available. And the first thing the user does, or the administrator does, is they can do the provisioning. So for the provisioning, the user can go in, they can define the entry points, the queues, sites, teams, all of that information can be defined. And we also have the concept of user profiles. So as part of the user profiles, you can go in and choose which specific menu items are available to what user. And then beyond that, you can also specify which data elements are available to which user. So not only can you say that this person only should have visibility to real-time reports and should be able to access that, you can also go in and say that even in the real-time reports, they should only get access to this site or this team or these set of agents. So once you have done your provisioning of sites, team, and users, you can then define your profiles, which are your multimedia profiles, which are capacity for the agents across the different channels. We also support skilling as well. So in the system, we support skill definitions. We support them of 4 types. One is proficiency-based skill, which primarily can be used for a language. Say it's a range between 1 to 10. We have Boolean skills, which could be which are yes or no value, which could be, say, used for certification. We have enumeration skills, which are basically checkboxes. And then finally, we have a skill, which is a blank text. And essentially, you can choose whatever the skill name is and put any value for it. One use case of this particular skill is where we put the extension ID for each of the agents as a skill. And if we want one specific agent and only that agent for a call, we can set the extension ID of that call to be only that number, and among all the agent pool, we will only be targeting that one person earmarked for that call. So these skills are then combined into a skill profile, because an agent can have multiple skills. So you can create a skill profile and say, people of this skill profile have this skill value where English is equal to 8, say they are CC1 certified, German level is say 6, and then you have your, what are the skills of this particular person, and then those are associated to the user that you have created in the system. And then the threshold rules are also created right here. This is where the supervisor can go in and say, I would like to be notified if this condition becomes true. And then you can also do your DN to EP mapping. So DNs are the phone numbers into which the calls are landing into, and you can have multiple phone numbers land to a single entry point, which is your funnel into which calls are coming in. And all of this provisioning information that you go in and provision can be exported out in the form of reports, or these can be even printed out as a file as well. So once this provisioning information is done, the next thing that the user can do is define their routing strategy. The routing strategy is where you are defining first what the customer experience is when they call in. So typically, when the customer calls in, you want to play a message to them and ask them, why are you calling? And based on the response, you want to send the call. You want to classify the call and send them to the right queue. So to do that, just playing that voice message, you can create wave files. So in this case, I have the different wave files. In this case, I have a wave file which basically says press 1 for sales, 2 for service, and that's a wave file. I just went in, clicked new, and uploaded. And now that I have the wave files, I can then create my call flows. So as part of the call flow, the experience that I just showed you when the incoming call came in is when the caller called in, we played a message, we collected information, and sent the caller to a queue. So I'll just show you how easy it is to create that specific call flow using the call flow builder. So I want to play a message and get the response, so I'll choose the menu block, and I can just double click on the menu block, and here I can choose the wave file that I should use for answering that call. The timeout value is how much time I want to give to the user. I'm going to give them 5 seconds. The number of branches is 2. If they press 1, I want to send them to the sales queue. If they press 2, I want to send them to the service queue. And then if they press 1, because I want to send them to the sales queue, I just add the queue object, and I just link the 1 to this queue, open this, and put the sales queue right here. And then if they press 2, I can just send them to this queue block and put this as the service queue. So this is a very simple call flow. And then I can define, I've given the user 5 seconds, and if they don't answer or enter anything, then that's the timeout condition. In that case, I can just call them, repeat the message again. And the valid values were 1 or 2, but what if the customer enters 4? Then that's an invalid value. In that case, I can play the message back to them. So this was a straightforward call flow, but it took me less than 5 minutes to create that. But then we have more complex blocks, which essentially, one example of that is a fetch variable, where we can make an API call to an external system. We can pass information that we know about the caller, and we can get the response back from that external API. So for example, if you're using a CRM system and you want to pass the phone number that you know about that customer and have them respond back whether there's a case open, and if there's a case open, who's the assigned agent for that case. And in that case, you can use that information, and instead of sending the call to a generic queue, you can send the call only to that specific agent, thereby providing better routing for your customers. This is also where the insights gained from our analytics ties back into our routing using the fetch variable block. So now when I save this, so here I'm going to call this Cisco demo 2. So now I have a call flow. The next thing I can do is go and define my call routing strategies. So as part of the routing strategy, I can essentially go in and choose the entry point that I want to define the behavior for. So essentially, when the callers are calling in, the calls come to an entry point. So in this case, I'm going to go in and choose the entry point and define the behavior for those calls. So I'm going to choose the in this case, I'm choosing an entry point, and here I can choose the routing strategy, and I can have multiple routing strategies based on time of the day of the week. Now, the only condition I have to keep in mind is I can't have overlapping routing strategies, because that would be a conflict in terms of confusing the system on what should be done. So here I can create a routing strategy, and I can define when is this routing strategy going to be applicable for based on the time of the day of the week, or the specific days. And then I can choose the control script. So remember that call flow that I've built? So that's going to be available in this particular drop-down right here, and that was called demo Cisco 2. And here I can essentially override that wave file or the queues as part of this particular routing strategy. So now I've essentially created a call flow, I've associated it to an entry point, and all the callers that call to that entry point within this time period will experience that particular call flow. And what we've done is we have classified the call and sent the call to a queue. Now, as part of the routing strategy, we can also define what the distribution strategy is for the queue. So to define that, you can choose your queue. So in our system, the green arrow is an entry point, and then the green dots are the inbound queues. So in this case, I have a queue right here, And I can define, again, multiple routing strategies at the queue level. And again, based on time of the day of the week, I can go in and define what the distribution strategy should be. So here I can essentially look at who is the resource pool assigned to answer this call. So here I can say, well, I want this team to be the primary team to answer the call, but then what if nobody is available or logged in that team? Do you want that caller to just remain in the queue with no notification and the caller might abandon? So to address those things, within CC1, you have the ability to define and increase your distribution pool of agents by adding resources. So in this case, what I'm saying is after 90 seconds, if nobody was available in this team, I want these two teams to be considered as well. So initially, the system will go in, it will try and find somebody in this team for 90 seconds. If nobody's available in 90 seconds, then it'll look at these three team pools of agents to essentially go in and answer the call. And then you can keep doing this, and you can keep adding resources as the call ages, and thereby what you're doing is you're adding resources to get somebody to answer the call as opposed to the caller abandoning. And this is also where you can relax the skill requirement as well. So at the entry point, you can define the skill requirement for a call for that step. And within this particular distribution strategy, as the call ages, you can say, not only do I want to increase the resource pool, I also want the skill to be relaxed so that now instead of English level skill being 7, even a 5 would work as well. So you can keep doing that as part of the distribution strategy. Any questions?
There was one question back a bit on our recording capabilities regarding that. Now, let me just read it to you. Is there a mechanism to download call recordings, and who can download, and do we use secure RTP streams? And while you're answering, go ahead. You can answer that. I got one more after that. So you're earning your money.
Because this is PCI certified environment, we don't allow the user to go in and download recordings in this release. So in the previous release, we did have the interface where the user could download recordings from the UI. So we have stopped that. In this release, they can just play the recordings from the interface itself. So that's what's available in the application. Now we do have APIs to download the recordings from the platform itself. So if you have the proper credentials and the security key, you have the APIs available to download the recordings using that mechanism.
And then, is there a capability to edit recordings so that we can edit out certain sections, for example, the DTMF inputs, et cetera, and just start them at particular places?
We don't, our recordings are the way it is. We don't scrub the recordings at all. Another thing to keep in mind is our recordings are only, we don't record the IVR portion of it at all. We only start the recording when the conference object is created and the customer is connected to the agent. We do not record the portion when the call is just parked at the media server level and information is captured from the customer. Okay, so once you've defined your provisioning, you've defined your routing strategy, you can then, essentially your system is ready to go, and you can have calls coming in, and now your challenge as a supervisor is making sure that you have full visibility in terms of what's happening in the environment. So to that front, we have real-time reports, and these reports essentially are segregated from a call perspective, which is the current calls in flight, and also from an agent perspective in terms of who's logged in, what is the current status, and what are they doing. So in our application, when the report is selected, the supervisor can go in and choose which specific sites or teams you want to run the report for. This information is presented in a very easy to absorb chart at the top, and then more detailed information is available at the bottom in the form of a table. We do support drill down as well. So in this case, the supervisor sees something strange that they want to investigate. They can just double click on that particular team, and we'll show all the agents who are logged in that team, including the status. So in this case, all the agents who are connected, the supervisor can just click on the monitor button and start monitoring that call. Similarly, if I want to see more information for a particular agent, I can just double click on that, and now I'm able to see all the productivity information about that particular agent. So being able to drill down and show deeper level information is available in the application. We also have historical reports available. So anything that's happened prior to today is available and visible to the agent. Again, we show this information from a call perspective and an agent perspective. The user can go in and define their parameters for which they want to run the report in terms of which entry points or queue sites theme. They can choose the y-axis for the graph, which is right here. And for the table, they can choose which specific KPIs or columns should need to be visible for the table as well. And then in terms of time period, the user can select any time period within the last 13 months. And then the same concept of drill down occurs over here as well. So when we show the information on a daily basis, if the user wants more detailed information, we can drill down and show that same information in half-an-hour intervals as well. From an agent perspective, same thing applies. You can get visibility in terms of what the agents were doing from a historical standpoint. We also have call monitoring functionality available, so the supervisor can monitor calls. They can choose which calls they want to monitor based on the queue, the site, team, or agents. They can put in their callback number. So this is the number at which they are available for callbacks. And we essentially create another leg to the supervisor and within the conference object as a media server between the customer and the agent, and essentially just allow the supervisor to listen to the conversation, or they can even barge in. In addition to being in front of a machine and essentially monitoring calls, we have the ability for the supervisor to go in and create schedules. So this is where the supervisor knows that they will be available at a future time to monitor calls, but they'll not be in front of a machine and they'll not be able to click on those buttons to monitor the calls. So different supervisors can go in, they can create their different schedules and define which calls they want to monitor, what number they're going to be available at, and what is the time that they want to monitor the calls at. So for example, we had one customer who used this functionality to monitor calls during his commute between 5 and 6 p.m. So he just created a schedule between 5 and 6 p.m. every day, every weekday actually, and put in a cell phone number, hit save, and then at that desired time, one of the calls that met this criteria would be connected to the supervisor for them to monitor the calls. Like I mentioned, we have call recording functionality as well. So the supervisor can go in and define which calls should be recorded. So the user can go in, they can at the queue level define which calls should be recorded, and they can create the schedules. They can essentially specify based on the time of the day and have different recording schedules. Say for weekdays, they might have they might want 100% of the calls to be recorded, whereas for weekends they might only have 20% of the calls to be recorded, and then they can specify this information based on which site, team, or agents are handling the call as well. So when the call recording takes place, we associate the WAV file with the CDR record, which then can be used for searching. So for searching and retrieving recordings, we have the recording management portal where the user can go in, they can define which calls they want to search for. They can put in that criteria in terms of queues, sites, or wrap-up codes, or they can go advanced and they can enter some of the other information such as if they want to, say, search for recordings which were between 8 to 12 minutes, where the disposition was, say, a sale, they can just enter this criteria, and all the recordings that meet this criteria would be displayed to that particular supervisor. And then, of course, we have the campaign manager functionality. So that's essentially right here. This is going to involve the campaign manager. We also have the workforce optimization functionality available from the customer dashboard itself, and that provides the workforce optimization, WFM, QM, and analytics functionality. Just trying to see how I can move this. So that's our supervisor integration, and here the campaign manager is loaded up, and essentially it is, as Zach mentioned, I mean, this what is the underlying platform delivering it is totally transparent to the user. I'm taken to the campaign manager page. It is branded with the Broadsoft colors and the Broadsoft logo. And now I can go in and create campaigns, and as part of the campaign, I can define whether it's a preview or a progressive campaign. I can upload the lists, and I can define which pools of agents should be assigned to that particular campaign, either through the entry point or the team. So with that said, were there any questions before I move on to the Salesforce edition?
I've got a question that I think a lot of people are interested in. You probably compete more with InContact and i3, I would assume, from a cloud perspective. What's your perspective of our portfolio here versus theirs? The good, the bad, the ugly. Are we particularly strong in one area versus something else, and vice versa with them? Can you put any color on it? I know it's a very wide question. There's a lot of different capabilities here, but is there anything that really stands out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just be very honest and candid with the team here, because we're just within the family. So in terms of our strengths, our strengths are the analytics. Omnichannel, of course, everybody has that. There are table stakes, and there are strengths, and there are weaknesses, right? So call monitoring, call recording, routing, all of that functionality is table stakes. Everybody has that. Our routing, I think to some degree, is easier to use because I know in InContact it's very hard to manage the call storms. When a call storm comes in and you want different agents to handle those particular calls, you have to have the agents log off, log back in. And it's not easy. In our system, it's easier to essentially just add as part of the distribution strategy. But with that said, I mean, our core strength is analytics and the analyzer, which they don't, most of the vendors don't have. What you see is InContact realized this weakness, and they partnered with a company called Qlik, QLIK. But even with that, it was a solution which doesn't come close to ours, because it only includes the InContact data. It does not include third-party data. It does not provide the degree of sophistication we offer in our solution. Salesforce integration is another differentiator that we have above them, and then the UC integration. So that UC integration might only be specific to BroadWorks customers. Now, if you talk about weaknesses, so the weakness we have in our solution, which I don't know if it's a weakness or not, is we don't have predictive dialing. And if you are working on an opportunity and the customer wants predictive dialing, so first thing to essentially investigate is do they really want predictive dialing? Because predictive dialing is such a loose term that is thrown around, where the customer might just need an outbound dialer and just customers to be called progressively, but because they have heard this term predictive dialer and it kind of sounds cool, they might say we want a predictive dialer, right? So if you qualify the opportunity and you know they want a predictive dialer and they want to make more calls than available agents, and they don't care about regulations or what the customer experience is, then yeah, we don't have that functionality in our solution. And that's a conscious decision we've made at this front, in terms of that's a space which is very cutthroat in terms of the customers. Most of the customers already have a solution, and the only reason they might be looking for another solution is they want it at a better rate. And I don't think we can enter that market with a first 1.0 release and compete with a predictive dialer. So we've just decided to not offer that at this point. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So obviously we need to master the analyzer conversation. That's the one thing that obviously stands up and kind of point a lot of the dialogue we have away from the kind of the standard capabilities that everyone has into that analyzer discussion.
Absolutely.
Amit, a question in the chat window from prior was, do we use secure RTP streams in our recording solution?
Well, so the recordings are, they're on the media server, right? And we harvest them, and we essentially pull them into our repository. So because it's within network, it's fairly secure. We just do an FTP to push those recordings out from the media servers into our repository. Now, whether it's a secure RTP stream for streaming, I believe it is, but I'll need to double check and get back to you on that. Okay. So
you have about, if you can go a little bit deeper into the Salesforce side, because we really just glanced through that yesterday very, very briefly.
Absolutely. So let me touch upon and talk about the Salesforce integration. So with the Salesforce integration, let me show you. So here I'm logging into Salesforce. So within CC1, so CC1 is essentially, it's listed on App Exchange. So if I go to App Exchange and we search for Broadsoft, you'll see two listings appear. One is for the agent level integration, and the other one is the supervisor level integration. So you have two listings appear. This is the supervisor level integration, and it is essentially a managed package. And when you, there's a link that will be available that if a customer signs up for this, they would be able to use that link and install that managed package in their Salesforce org. So in this case, I've already gone in. I have an environment where I've installed the managed package within my Salesforce environment. And now when I log into Salesforce, I have a new menu item that appears, which is Call Center Admin. And using the Call Center Admin, I now have all the menu items, or majority of the menu items, available to me to configure all of my voice infrastructure without leaving Salesforce. So I can go in, I can define my entry points. Within the entry point, I can define what are the TFNs that are associated with this particular entry point. I can define the maximum number of calls. I can define the overflow numbers to which those calls that exceed this particular number should be sent to. I can define my voice queue. So for example, sales queue or a service queue can be defined right here. You can also go in and define your sites and teams. And what we do as part of our integration is we use the objects already created in Salesforce. So for example, the users are already created in Salesforce, and the agents are nothing but users that have a particular call center profile associated with them, and then they become call center agents. So we use that provisioning information, and those users who are agents can then be assigned to teams or sites within the application. You can define your auxiliary codes. These are essentially your wrap-up codes, or they could also be the idle codes that are available to the agent. You can define your profile, so you have all of your skilling information. You can create all of those and then assign them to the different users. You can also go in and create a threshold rules as well, so you can, all those conditions to monitor the application can be created right here. So in this case, I have two threshold rules. One is a rule to be notified if the number of calls they exceed a certain number, and then I can define which user or my email address or my text number that I should be receiving the text on. So those rules, again, I'm not leaving Salesforce. I'm doing all of that configuration within the Salesforce environment. And the next part is the routing strategy. So remember that call flow builder that was available to me. I can access that same functionality from within Salesforce. So now I can go in. I have that exact same call flow builder available to me to essentially define the experience that callers are going to experience when they call in. I can even monitor the calls, so I can essentially define which calls I want to monitor. I can even create the schedules and define as a supervisor which calls I should be sent to as part of the monitoring setup. I can define which calls should be recorded as well. So this is the recording strategy. And then once the calls are recorded, we have an interface where the user can go in and retrieve those recordings. So as part of the integration, we don't send the WAV files to Salesforce because the storage is very expensive in Salesforce. We have the search screen, and the user essentially they can play the recordings through our application. We also have real-time reports available. So again, everything from a call center perspective in real time are displayed. And then from a historical standpoint, if the user wants to get information about past interactions, we push the call data records, which are all the calls that have taken place in the agent activity records in terms of all the activities performed by the agent into Salesforce. And because we have these records pushed into Salesforce, you can then use the native Salesforce reporting and run reports using these specific objects. So, and the other advantage of this is where you can use the native Salesforce reporting to create joins. For example, you could create a join between the case object where the cases are being created with the call detail record. So now you have visibility on not only the calls that are coming in, but the corresponding cases that have been created for those calls. So you're getting more visibility around your setup. Any questions on this front? I think I saw something on the chat on whether you can prioritize customers based on whether they're gold or platinum customer. And if that's the question, and I'll just presume that's the question, and I'll answer that. So within the call flow builder itself, you can, yes, you can absolutely do that using the call flow builder. You can make a query to an external application where you can get that information about the customer. We have a business rules engine repository, which can act as the repository for third-party data to be pulled in. So, for example, if you have a list of customers and say the customer name and their status, whether they're gold, silver, or platinum customer, you can store that in the repository. As part of the routing engine fetch variable, you can make a query to this particular repository, figure out what the status of that customer is, and as part of the response variable, use that variable for routing that call and putting the more important customer to a higher priority queue.
Does that apply also on the outbound campaign? Two questions, kind of the reverse of that. Can you prioritize a VIP customer who may be down the list to be brought to the top of the list? And how many campaigns are supported in totality?
So in terms of campaigns, there are no limit on the number of campaigns. Now the next question around, so from an inbound perspective, you have callers in queue, and you want to put the customers ahead of the queue, right? So that is also possible. We have this does require some professional services, but we do have a service called queue reshuffle, where you can reprioritize a queue based on a predefined parameter. And essentially, this was done for a customer where they wanted SLA to be used for putting customers who had a shorter SLA to the front of the queue. So that is possible, just to answer that briefly. Okay.
Amit, when you first went into the Salesforce demo, the very first screen was a Salesforce screen where you selecting, I think, agent or supervisor or something, but somewhere there it said $99 an agent. Long before you even got into this interface. What was that $99? Can you explain that?
So this is the list price that customers pay per agent if they just signed up from AppExchange. So based on the usage count, they would pay us $99, and then we owe Salesforce, I believe, $15 out of this. Now, there is a different pricing for service providers, and Zach should be able to provide that price list to you that's applicable for Cisco. I'm not sure of the exact number, but this is for direct customers for the $99.
So I'm not too familiar with AppExchange. Are they paying $99 to Salesforce or to us?
No, they're paying it to us, and we are paying a royalty to Salesforce, $15 or
royalty to Salesforce. Okay.
Yes.
And how does one discount this price further?
Yes, so that's the price list that information is in the price list that we'll be able to share with you in terms of the list price for service providers or resellers.
For resellers, okay. But then they wouldn't access. Okay, got it. This is what they're buying online, basically. What you said, that they're buying everything online. Okay.
So the thing is, this is just a marketing platform. They don't need to enter their credit card number. Even if you go and do Get It Now, you'll be taken to a form as a customer, and we'll just ask you for who are you, how can we contact you, and all of that information would be essentially this. So when I did Get It Now, all we are doing is we are sending them to this page. This is where we are capturing information from them, and we'll give them a call and say, okay, here is the link to the managed package, and the $99 is just the retail price that we have published out. Does that make sense? There's no credit card required right here for downloading it just yet.
No, but you've got to have a contract. You've got to issue them an invoice. I'm just trying to work out that whole thing. I can understand when it's done through a reseller because the reseller manages that whole process.
Right. Okay.
Amit, this is Aviva from China. I have two questions. Number one is, when you sell this on the Salesforce, because Salesforce also have its own customer care solution, so do you find our Broadsoft solution competitive? And what's the main differentiator? The number two question is, you mentioned that the application center is in US mainly, and a few other sites. Because I typed the question in the chat box as well, because AWS is also present in China. So I want to ask, what's the main challenges to replicate the AC to other regions? Thank you.
The first question, let me answer the second question first, and then we'll get to the first question. So the R10 release is available in the US. It is essentially the solution is deployed on the Amazon Web Service, available within the US. and it also requires the voice pops that were available from 9.9 to be converted and be compatible with 10.0. So it's just a matter of scoping the work and pushing this application centers out to different geographies, and that is the effort that has to be put in, where we look at the demand, whether we want to go into that market, the cost involved and the opportunity involved, and prioritize those specific geographies. So that's part of the market expansion process. So there's nothing that prohibits China.
Could I just add while you're answering that, have you ever looked at China as a market from a business case perspective?
We have not, and well, the primary, well, so here is what we have done so far. We went to market to Japan, and we had a reseller, SCSK, which is Sumitomo Corporation, which is one of the biggest resellers of Salesforce in Japan. And because of them, we added a voice pop in Japan, and their whole business model and strategy was they would in turn sell the CC1 solution to China using the voice pop that's available in Japan, because the media is not really traveling a lot of distance with that Japanese voice pop. So as such, the 9.9 release is available using the Japanese data center Japanese data center and the Japanese voice pop, and should be available in China.
It's very important
Okay,
to say that it's business case and demand, right? It's not a matter, we call that the chicken and egg. If you put the voice pop in an area, will they come, or how much is out there that can justify the investment? Because I believe, the voice pop is non-trivial. It's a fairly, I'm sorry, not a voice pop, but an application center is pretty substantial investment. We're not talking, something that you stand up. Plus, there's a lot of paperwork and approvals, et cetera, to get even a voice pop put together, which is typically at least 2, 3, 4 months, I believe, isn't it, Amit, to get voice pops? Yeah.
Yeah. And voice pops run about $150K, so even those are substantial investments that essentially need justification on the business case. So now, if you can help me remember the first question, and I apologize.
The first question was more around Salesforce having a contact center CX portfolio as well. Does it conflict? Is it competitive, etc.?
Thank you. So so the answer is no. Our solution does not conflict with what is available with Salesforce. And the reason we say it's a no, and there's no conflict, is because with the Salesforce integration, we only provide the voice channel. We don't go in and say, you can use our email, you can use our chat, and you can use our voice. No, we say Salesforce provides email, Salesforce provides chat, Salesforce does not have a voice channel, use CC1 for your voice channel. So we are actually complementing the Salesforce solution and not positioning our email and chat to be competitive at all. It's just a voice-only solution in that case.
Do you have any prediction or view what % of our future business would be in the Salesforce edition versus the others? Is there any kind of ideas? Is Salesforce going to be an overwhelming 80% or vice versa?
Well, it depends. The thing is, it all depends on our go-to-market strategy. If we take the position that we start targeting Salesforce customers or new opportunities that Salesforce is pursuing, in that case, our solution is very compelling. You show the solution to a customer who's using Salesforce, they have not seen anything that's in such with such a deep integration with Salesforce that's available. So from an application perspective, it'll sell. But the question is, do we target just those limited customers, or do we really go after the non-Salesforce customer? And what we have seen in the past, and based on what our strategy was with Broadsoft over the past 2 years, we actually went to market through service providers who were actually reselling BroadWorks. And those customers and those service providers had no association with Salesforce. So as a result, our opportunities and our implementations were less on the Salesforce side and more on the standard side.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. So with that said, let me actually at this point show you the agent level integration as well. So on the agent front, here I'm going into Service Cloud, and as an agent, actually let me go in here again. So here I'm going back into Service Cloud, and as an agent, I am automatically logged into Salesforce. I didn't have to enter my credentials at all. I put in the DN at which I'm reachable for this session. I hit go, and now I can let me make a phone call. So when I make a phone call, based on the IVR menu, I'll be prompted for one.
For service.
So
Press 1 for sales, or press 2 for service.
So I'm going to press 1. And now the call has gone into the queue because this agent is in idle status. As soon as the agent is available, this call will be assigned to this agent. This agent's phone will start ringing, and the agent will get a screen pop with the customer who's calling in. So to do that, let me go available. As soon as I go available, I get a screen pop. I can see who's calling. Let me answer the call, and now I see I get a screen pop as well. I'm connected with the customer, and I can essentially transfer the call to other agents, queues, or DMs. And once the call ends, I can choose the wrap-up reason, and what you'll see is the screen in Salesforce will refresh. And what happened as part of the refresh is a new activity record got created about this particular call, and we also have a link to the recording as well within Salesforce as well. So that's the agent level integration. Everybody has that. We also have that. But then in addition to this, we also have the supervisor level integration. So the last thing that I want to include as part of the demo today is our analytics. So as part of the analytics solution, we have the analyzer, and the analyzer, again, is accessible from the customer dashboard itself. So using the analyzer, the user can go in and create visualizations and dashboards. Visualization can be perceived as a report, but it's so much more than a report, as I'll show you, where the user can gain meaningful insights from the underlying data. So here I have a visualization that I've created in the past, and I can choose. I need to start with, what is my data set? Which interactions do I want to analyze? So that is first done by defining the date range. So I can go in, I can choose relative date ranges or even a custom date range. And while I'm creating a visualization, I can even choose a real-time visualization as well. Now that I've defined my date range, I can then go in and add filters. So this is where I can say which interactions I want to include. And here I can define and exclude interactions that don't meet that criteria. So here I can go and say, I only want to include interactions, say, from these set of agents and nobody else. Or say, if I'm getting data from my IVR, I can specify that I only want to include interactions where the customer pressed 3 in this IVR menu and not 4. So now that I have the data set, I can then go in and define my profiling and segmentation variables. Profiling variables are your KPIs, And here the user can go in, they can add any KPI or any field from any of the different systems from which we are pulling in data. And I can, as a user, I can go in and create formulas too. So here I've created a formula where I'm using one variable coming in from my CRM system, and I'm dividing it by a variable coming in from my ACD system. And then the segmentation variables are the elements I want to compare the performance on. So if I want to compare the performance of the different countries, or see how the different countries are performing on these KPIs, I'll add country as a segmentation variable. But here I can go in and say if I want to compare the performance of different agents, I can just add agent over here, and now I'll be able to see the performance of the agents on these KPIs. So once I've created the profiling and segmentation variables, I can choose the output format. So we support the basic tabular format, but then we have a variation of the tabular format called the heat map. And as part of the heat map, we look at the value of a cell, so it's a tabular format, and we look at the value of a cell and we see how the value compares against the rest of the values in the table. And then the higher the value, the more deeper shade of red we use, and the lower the value compared to the rest of the values, the more shade of white we use. So this allows the user to very quickly see the outliers in terms of the extremely low and the extremely high values just by looking at the very deep or the very white cells. We have two variations of the heat map, the row heat map and the column heat map, where we only look at the row elements versus the column elements. And then we have the standard charting mechanism, the line chart, area chart, pie chart. All those are available. Those are very standard. Everybody has them. We have them too. The next charting mechanism is the motion chart, which is unique to our solution. So in other applications, you'll be able to get the information on, well, how many interactions came in the month of February. Yeah, 120 interactions came in. There's summary level information, and this information is not meaningful to you where you can make insights or gain insights in terms of how that particular KPI or those interactions were spread out in that month. So the motion chart, we show you how that KPI changed over a period of time, and I have two examples of this motion chart that I'll show to you where I'll be able to look at the underlying data and be able to make some insights to my advantage. And then the sparkline chart is essentially a table where each cell can be a chart. And now that I've created the visualization, I can save it, and I can even schedule this visualization to be sent out to a set of recipients, emailed out to a set of recipients on a weekly basis or a daily basis or whatever reference I want to set up. And then I have two examples of motion charts. So in this first example, I created this visualization, and I want to compare the performance of two vendors. I have two vendors who are handling my calls, and they are in yellow, they're River BPO, and in blue, there is Divergence, and I'm looking at their offer rate, which is essentially where customers are calling in, the agents are making an offer to the customer, and depending on that offer, the customer converts. The customer makes a purchase, in which case it's a conversion. So I have a hunch that my yellow vendor, which is River BPO, has better performance than the blue vendor. But I've created this visualization where I can see what's going on and whether they're really better or not. So here I'm playing this visualization, and I'm seeing over a period of time that my hunch was actually true. Yellow does outperform blue for the most part. But what I see is, well, blue seems to have spikes, right? I mean, there are certain days in which they are actually even better than the vendor in yellow. And when I look at these dates in the calendar, I actually find out that these are weekends. So one quick insight that I can quickly make is, well, the performance of this vendor is better on weekends than on weekdays. So I can use that to my advantage and send them more calls on weekends and less call on weekdays, and use this insight to my advantage. Well, the next question that comes to mind is, well, is it because they have better performing agents on weekends, or is it because the customers who are calling in on weekends are more likely to make a purchase, which is why they picked up the phone. Well, there's one way to find out. We'll just create another visualization, which is what I've done over here. And here I'm looking at two agents. This agent is staffed on the weekends. This agent is staffed on the weekdays. And I'm looking at the cumulative conversion rate for these agents over the interactions that they handle. So now when I play this motion chart over a period of time, what I see is, well, initially there was a lot of noise. This agent started good, but was on a downtick. This agent, kind of improved. But as we analyze about 700 calls, we are seeing a straight line on the conversion rate. So if this chart was, like this, going up and down, then we would have said that there is no stability. This agent's performance is all over the place. But here, because we are getting straight lines, that means that there is consistency in performance. And at the end of analyzing 700 calls, we can accurately say that this person has a 27% chance of converting a call, whereas this person only has a 10% chance of converting a call, who's the weekend agent. Now we can use these insights to our advantage, and in the routing engine, a call can be made to the business rules engine with this data being the underlying insight to that particular repository. And when a call comes in, the business rules engine can say to the routing engine, this is the better performing agent who's logged in, to whom the more important call should be sent to. So this is our analytics solution. I just showed you two use cases or examples of how the analytics can be used. But at the end of the day, it is whatever the customer's data is showing and indicating that we present as part of our analytics, which allows the user to understand their data and use it to their advantage to improve their operations and business outcomes. So that was it as part of the demo.